Hi, I'm Wendy Yellen, and this is The Art of Transformation. Today, what I want to talk about is a way to help you when there is a situation, or in this case, actually a person who's looming so large in your mind, the difficulty with them, the anger with them, the strength of who they are seems to be overwhelming you, and you can't find a way to come forward and act like yourself. And so I'm going to talk about that and also give you an experiential exercise. Now, if you haven't already liked and subscribe, please do that. It'll really help me to reach other people like you, and I appreciate it. So what happens? Actually, let me tell you a story about a colleague of mine that I was consulting with, who is an entrepreneur and in the healing professions. She's an extremely competent woman, on the cusp of going into her $1 million idea for her business. Very, very different idea for her business. So I'll disguise some of the details. So she has a woman who works with her and for her. And my friend, we'll call her Sue. She's my friend and colleague. She doesn't feel comfortable with the way, we'll call her Mary, with the way Mary is working. And what Mary is doing isn't bringing in the income that Sue, the business owner, was counting on. So it's costing Sue more to have this person working for her than she thought it would. And so she wants to change the arrangements of how they work together. But Mary's got, for some idiosyncratic reason for Sue, Mary has personality traits that make it really hard for Sue to be herself, to run her business in an efficient, effective, and responsible leadership way. Something about Mary brings up something in Sue that makes it hard for Sue to be all of who she is. Okay, so let's bring this to you. So everybody has situations or people that trip them up. We all have that. Certain people, certain situations, just they hook you, and you start to operate with less than less than who you are, and it doesn't feel right. You feel smaller. You feel like your energy is being drained. You feel like you're tamped down. You feel confused. Those kinds of things. So the reason I'm telling you this story is to help you in situations like that for you. And again, I'm going to do an experiential component. So we talked a lot about how to think about this situation, how she could work with Mary, what she could say. But of course, when you're in the throes of feeling little, you can't think and you can't operate at your highest level. Now, you must have experienced that when something different about a situation reduced you to rags, is how it feels sometimes. I'll take a side story here. When I was training as a social worker in Texas, there was a psychologist colleague of mine who always wore pencil skirts and was, of course, Dr. So-and-so. And I was a lower on the hierarchy social worker. And there was something about this woman that just made me feel like I wasn't as smart or as competent as I am. it was very strange because I really liked her. And one day we were sitting in her office talking about a case that we were sharing. And I noticed that in her chair, I noticed that I kind of like, I wasn't sitting up as straight. I was sinking into the chair. I probably wasn't doing it very much, but I felt like I was completely down in the chair, kind of like, I just like lost myself, totally lost myself to this woman. And I remember at the time I wasn't doing Eidetics. Had never heard of Eidetics, I don't think, at that point. But I remember talking to my therapist at the time about it and trying to bolster myself so I could deal with this colleague woman who I had no external reason to be that one down feeling with her. Now, you might have something like this with a child of yours. A little child, a teenage child would be easy to imagine, a young adult child, where who you are and your skills and your competency and your ability to take care of things just you feel struck out, you feel struck down when you're in this particular discussion with them or you're handling a particular kind of situation with them. You just feel like, where did I go? Where did I go right here? So these are the kinds of situations I'm talking about. It could be with colleagues. It could be with a friend, where it often will happen where you feel like you need to be doing or saying something else, but you just can't. Maybe it's at a dinner party and you're becoming a wallflower or disappearing, something like that. You get the idea. So let's go back to the business owner, Sue. So as we're talking about this and she's consulting with me about what to do, I gave her an eidetic image to do. And I'm going to give that eidetic image to you right now. And we'll work it through a little bit. And then I'll talk to you about what we're doing and how it helped her and how it might help you. It's super, super simple and it immediately change the energy inside you permanently towards the situation. All right. So here is this one eidetic image. I want to remind you that these were all developed by my teacher, mentor, and friend, Dr. Akhter Ahsen, and used, of course, with his permission. There are thousands of eidetic images, and this is one. This is just one. All right, so first, you probably already have it in your mind. Pick a situation where you're feeling less than in regard to someone else, or you're disappearing, or any of the things that I've already talked about. Now, you can do this with your eyes closed, assuming you're not driving, of course. Now, see you and this person in an image. So that means you wait, you don't control it. You wait, you give the image complete free rein to do whatever it wants, and you see the two of you in an image in front of you right now. Even if you've only been on the phone, it doesn't matter. You can do this with people you've never seen face to face. Now look at the image. Literally look at the image. We're not talking about memory or history now. We've gone into the eidetic mind, your eidetic mind. Now see the two of you. You might want to pause the recording anytime you need to if you need more time. I'll go on, assuming that you're going to do that whenever you need to. Now, of the two of you, who in this image right now, what you're seeing, who's more vivid and who's more vague? You might also look and see who's bigger and who's smaller. But especially you want to look at vivid and vague. And how are you feeling in the image? How are you feeling in the image with this person right now? Very likely you're feeling what you've been feeling all along, which is what we've been talking about, less than, or stripped of your abilities and competencies to some degree. Or immobilized maybe, or afraid. I've done this with partners, intimate partners. It can be very helpful. Now, so you're probably feeling what you normally feel, and probably you are more vague and they are more vivid. Most people, that's what you'll be seeing. However, I'm going to try to work with you with whatever your situation is. Now, assuming first, well, just switch. So what I mean by switch is now you make yourself more vivid in the image and make them more vague. Or if it's already that way, switch it the other way. In other words, switch the vivid and vague. Switch who's vivid and who's vague. You may have to work at this a bit, meant to change that in the image. That's okay. That's the part of the change process, or it may happen instantly. Now look at the image. You should be the opposite of the one you were before, and notice how you feel now. How do you look? And how do you feel? And what are you doing now? Don't put too much, don't go into the conversation. That's usually not the image itself. You want to just see how you're being. And then notice how you feel in your body. And then come on back. Now, obviously, if we were working together one-on-one, I would be able to adjust this to whatever uniquely was happening to you. And that's what, in my opinion, that's what Eidetics is. One of the most wonderful features of it is it just is completely unique to you, and we go with what's unique to you. However, for the purposes of this video, most likely you were vague at first and you went to vivid. And if you notice and you watched for a while, you very likely began to feel much better, came out of that kind of funk, and you were able to feel the feeling of yourself. And I'm going to talk about why that is in a moment. So when I was working with Sue, she saw herself very vague, and the woman who was working for her, Mary, very vivid. And we've worked together for a while in different ways, and she was able to switch immediately. And as soon as she switched, she felt, you could hear it in her voice. She felt, we were just on the phone, not even on Zoom. And she instantly, all that feeling of, I don't know how to handle it. She's got my goat. She's overwhelming me. I feel so small. Those kinds of things, that was over. It was gone. Just gone. And one of the wonderful things is that she began to have more creative ideas about how she could have this discussion with Mary so that they could sort this out like adults, because it had not been an adult conversation up till then. What happened to you? I actually would love to know if you want to write me, but I would love to know. And were you able to contact a little bit more of yourself? What you might want to do is go back And just close your eyes right now. Pause the recording, close your eyes. See yourself more vivid and spend some time seeing yourself more vivid and then more vague. And notice what happens in your emotions and in your sensations in your body. Because sometimes it can take a little while. Now, what we're really working with here is the way the human mind works and doesn't work. The problem, as I see it, with most solutions that people think is that we try to think ourselves out of the box. We try to think ourselves out of what our normal way of doing things. We try to reason with ourselves. Oh, Wendy, that doesn't make any sense. Stop doing that. Okay, well, if that was all it took to make deep change, nobody would be having any problems at all because everybody would be walking around logical. But having lived in the world for many decades by this point, that we're not logical people at all. And in my opinion, trying to create logic and make change from logic is to me, it doesn't include the understanding of what our minds can actually do. It's an attempt to work with a tiny little part of the mind that's not meant really to make us feel better. So with this image, what we've just done is, you know how a situation can overtake you and you find yourself perseverating and thinking about it and rehearsing it and putting them in this situation and you in this situation, and you try to say this and then you think about it and then you wake up in the middle of the night and then it's on your mind in the morning and it's on your mind at night. It's just like it goes on and on and on. You're just trying to solve it, or you're just in this heated kind of loop with yourself. You know that. We all get there. So it's literally looming large in your mind. Your mind can't let go of it. And so that's part of why this image is so powerful, is that instead of that person taking up all the big space in your psyche, when you work with your consciousness through the image to shift you into the vivid part and them into the vague part, and you see it, not just think about it, but you see it, there's a sigh of relief. Oh my goodness, like I don't feel that right now. I feel better. I feel more like myself. I feel more like I can put together my own creativity. The other part of why this is really important is that I didn't say to you, well, just think of them as an ant, or just remember how smart you are. And remember, this is your business. You can do whatever you want. Those kinds of ideas, those kinds of encouragement, while they're true, they don't really help you grapple with the way your mind is working, which is like that sunken into the chair feeling that I had with the colleague of mine back when I was a trainee. So these are the kinds of things that you can do with your mind that are, in my opinion, far more helpful than, come on, you're the boss. Hey, you're 40, 50, 60 years old. You know how to do this. Or let me give you some suggestions about how to be a better boss. Those things are all needed. But if you can't implement them, then what's needed is a difference inside the consciousness. And that's what you just did. I hope this is very helpful to you, and I will see you in the next recording.